Good morning, I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. Now it is time for another Music Month video, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it is when I choose 5 songs and 1 album that I feel represent a certain theme or mood or genre. And for this month's video, I thought I would talk about some of my favourite metal music. Metal and all of its various subgenres is an area of music that I very rarely talk about on here, and part of that is because I don't listen to it a huge amount anymore. I certainly used to listen to it loads when I was a teenager, but I thought it would be fun to make this video about some of my favourite metal music. And just so you know, the album and the songs that I'm going to be listing here are ones that I do still listen to today. So I hope you enjoy this, and it'll probably give you a slightly different perspective on my music taste, because I know that there are some people who don't believe that I have ever listened to metal music based on what I listen to now. And also, I listened to quite a broad spectrum of different types of metal. I wasn't one of those people that only ever listened to like metalcore or death metal and would like shun everything that wasn't that specific genre. Just before I get into this, I realized when I was compiling this list that there were loads of artists that I would like to include but couldn't. So here's a quick shout out to some of the artists that didn't make it into the selection but I still absolutely love: Trivium, Stormlord, Delain, Sonata Arctica, Within Temptation, Leaves Eyes, Ensiferum, Camelot, and Epica. I wonder if any metalheads are going to watch this and tell me how shit my taste in metal is and how nothing I listen to is real metal. That'd be funny. Track number 1 is by an awesome and brutal metal band called Black Veil Brides. No, I'm sorry, I can't do it, it's not. Track number 1 is from the Swiss Celtic folk metal band Eluviate. I think I'm pronouncing that right, I'm never quite sure. It's taken from their 2008 album Slania, and it's called Slania's Song. Slania is a great record. It was one of my first introductions to sort of Celtic folk metal and how awesome it could be. I love the contrast in the first verse between the acoustic instrumentation that accompanies the female vocalist, and then when it gets a bit more driven and heavy, that's when the male vocalist is present. Yeah, it's just a generally wicked song, and I feel it kind of showcases the spectrum of music that they kind of created, especially on that album. Track number 2 is by the awesome American band In Flames and is called Reflect the Storm. Taken from their 2006 album Come Clarity, which was the first album of theirs I ever heard. One of the things I love most about this track is the guitar riff that comes in first at about the 27-second mark. I just think it's an absolutely brilliant guitar riff. I love the drive throughout the song and then the kind of slightly more laid-back vocal style during the choruses. They're an awesome band, although I think in terms of actually listening to a full album, I prefer A Sense of Purpose to Come Clarity, but they're both really good albums. Track number 3 is by a band called Scar Symmetry. It's from their 2008 release Holographic Universe and is called Fear Catalyst. I was going to choose their song Morphogenesis from that album, but the bridge section of it is just really terrible, so I decided to go for Fear Catalyst instead. I love the contrast between the really growly vocals and then when he actually sings, and there's that bit when the pre-chorus happens where it kind of comes down a lot and there's a bit of singing going on, and then it builds up to this guitar riff that comes in, and similarly to the In Flames song, I think that guitar riff is brilliant and I think it works so well in the context of the whole song. And then the sort of call and response between the growled vocals and the sung vocals and how the guitar riff is kind of underlying all of that, I just think it works really well. Track number 4, right, this is very important because this is arguably one of my favorite songs of all time. It also doesn't have any vocals in it, so if you're potentially listening to the songs I'm recommending but you can't stand screaming or shouty vocals, then don't worry, this doesn't have any. It's by the German epic folk metal band Equilibrium and it's called Mana. It's the final track on their 2008 release Sagas. Now, I listen to every Equilibrium album that comes out and not once have they made anything that I think is as good as that album. That is like one of the best albums I think that exists in the world, especially in terms of German folk metal. But it's not even as simple as calling it German folk metal. They use such a huge range of different instruments on that record. And that final track, Mana, it's about 16 minutes long, entirely instrumental, and it's kind of like the magnum opus of that whole album. Everything that came before it is represented at some point during that. The way it develops, the way it kind of ebbs and flows throughout the different sections of instrumentation, I think it's a genuinely genius piece of music. And they keep trying to end an album with an epic long instrumental, and not that they're bad, they're just never quite as like wow as that song is. Like when you listen to that from start to finish, it's brilliant. And there are like 2 techno pan flute solos in it as well. I mean, what more could you want from a piece of music? Now, the final track for this Music Month video is by a band called Times of Grace and is called Worlds Apart. Taken from their 2011 release The Hymn of a Broken Man, which I'm pretty sure is their only release to date. I think they've only released that one record. Times of Grace are formed of Adam and Jesse from Killswitch Engage. I think this was sort of a side project of theirs that took ages to get off the ground. I could be wrong about that, so please correct me if I am wrong. But that whole album is absolutely wicked, and one of the things I love so much about it is the production. And I'm fairly sure that Adam is the guy who not only plays guitar for Killswitch, but also produces Killswitch, so obviously his production value will have passed on to this record as well. Worlds Apart is an absolutely wicked song. I love the contrast between the more gritty vocals and the kind of softer singing of Jessie. And the thing that I love the most in that track is the change in time signature and massive build with these awesome soaring vocals that happens at about 3 minutes 36 seconds in. It is just absolutely wicked. And again, the production and the mixing on this album is superb. So if you want to listen to a very, very well produced metal record, listen to The Hymn of a Broken Man by Times of Grace. So those are the 5 tracks. Now the album that I'm going to choose for this Music Month video on my favorite metal music is arguably my favorite album of all time. If it's not my favorite one, then it's definitely up there in like the top 3. It's certainly by my favorite band of all time, and I've mentioned them a few times before, but my favorite band are a band called Nightwish. They're a symphonic metal band from Finland, and the album in question is their 2004 release, Once. Now, I love basically all of their releases. There are a few reasons why I've chosen this album, however, one of them being that Nemo, which was one of the singles from the album, was the first Nightwish song I ever heard. I can remember staying with some people in Hereford when I was doing the Three Choirs Festival when I was really young, and someone bought a magazine while I was there. I can't remember if it was Total Guitar, Metal Hammer, or Kerrang or something, but it came with a little free DVD that had a load of newly released music videos on it. I remember one of the other ones being Inspiration on Demand by Shadows Fall. That was my introduction to Nightwish, and I loved them from the very second that I heard that song. But I also feel like Once is one of their best albums, if not the best one that they've ever released. And that's got nothing to do with the fact that Tarja is still on it, because loads of people argue about which singer is better. They've had a few different singers. They had Tarja, and then they had Annette, and now they got Floor Jansen from After Forever. And I personally think that she's probably the best singer because she's the perfect amalgamation of the 2 different vocal styles from Annette and Tarja. But it's got nothing to do with the vocals. It's just the songs are so perfectly contrasting and yet all kind of part of the same body of work. You've got the absolutely beautiful songs like Creek Mary's Blood and Nemo, and you've also got the really kind of hard-hitting, heavier songs like Romanticide and Planet Hell. And then you've got Ghost Love Score, which again is one of my favorite songs of all time, if not my favorite song of all time. That song is just absolutely genius. Like from start to finish, I think it's amazing. That song was actually one of the reasons that I fell in love with Nightwish so much. I can remember just being absolutely amazed at how a band could so successfully fuse metal and orchestral music. I do think a major part of Nightwish's success in that area is firstly being able to use real musicians and record real orchestras, and also Pip Williams, who does all their orchestration. I think he's a pretty crucial part of the production process. But yeah, if you don't like the kind of more hardcore, screamy, shouty music that I've mentioned, Nightwish are a massive contrast to that. It's really hard to try and say what my top tracks are from that, because like I said, that is one of my favorite albums as a whole album. But the songs I listen to the most / have the most emotional impact on me now would definitely be Nemo, Creek Mary's Blood, The Siren. The chorus of The Siren is just so good when Tarja does that kind of like soaring reverby vocal thing, and Ghost Love Score, because it is an absolutely phenomenal piece of music. So there you have it. Those are some of my metal choices for Music Month. See, I don't just listen to Keaton Henson, Indie Rock, and Owl City. Anyway, let me know what you think. If you listen to any of the songs that I've talked about today, then please tell me what you think of them down in the comment section, because I genuinely love to hear other people's opinion on these songs. Especially if you don't listen to metal, I'd love to know what you think of them. Maybe you love them, maybe you hate them, maybe you like the music but you hate the vocals. Whatever you think is absolutely fine. Just let me know down in the comment section there, and also let me know if you have any great suggestions of metal artists and songs that you've been listening to recently. Thank you so much for watching. I really do hope that you've enjoyed this. Have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will see you very soon.